Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Manifestillionaire podcast with Michael Gustin, and I am your host, in fact, the Michael Gustin, and I'm really excited to be with you today. The Manifestillionaire podcast is all about turning ancient Eastern concepts, metaphysics, quantum physics, new thought movements, to translate all of these into practical, applicable, integratable, and actionable concepts that you can start implementing immediately to see any sort of change in any part of your life. A little background on me. I started down the path of learning this stuff when I was done trying to interpret religious concepts. A lot of this information that I have learned and integrated has really allowed me to shift a lot of parts of my life, from my relationships to my careers to my businesses to my health. The information that I'm going to be sharing with you over the life of this podcast has benefited me greatly, and I'm going to be doing my best to introduce you to these concepts. And I want to make a little disclaimer here that you may not understand this stuff immediately, and that's okay. You may not experientially understand what we're talking about here, and that is okay. The goal is not to have a culture of know-it-alls, but of people who want to know more and more every single day. Because for myself and the people that I love to surround myself with, we are a culture of people who are constantly seeking to destroy our own ideas of what is real, of how this physical universe works in the context of our physical life and our careers and our jobs and our relationships. And on this podcast, we're going to be exploring a lot of those things: relationships, careers. If you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot of different areas of life that we're going to be diving into. And I'm not claiming to know it all. I'm not claiming to, spout this as the objective truth. This is my truth. And it's a truth that has been growing in me for years and years and years. And I'm really excited to share all of this with you. And so what I've considered here is allowing us to dive into one of my favorite books of all time. It's called The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. And I would love to just start that podcast here because in my personal opinion, Neville teaches the law of attraction, the identity complex of humanity, and the true nature of things in a way that nobody else has ever really resonated with me. And I've been given the opportunity to share the things I'm going to be sharing with you with a lot of people. And those people have also seen some pretty miraculous things happen in their lives. And so, again, I want our journey together on this podcast to be more about growing and exploring new concepts, previously untouched ground. This is a safe place for you. We are not here to condemn anybody's journey or path, but ultimately to seek to understand the nature of reality in such a way that if it is, in fact, hackable, then let's learn the steps. Let's learn the techniques, the methods, the models, the concepts. Let's grow and let's become the best version of ourselves. So today, I'm just going to read the first chapter of The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. And after my reading, I'm going to be expounding on certain parts that really stick out to me and talking through them in a way that I hope allows you to practically understand what's being said here. Because Neville is known to speak in what you might call King James language, right? He says a lot of words like wheretofore and hence, and words we just don't even use in today's society for the most part. So I really think that we're going to have a great time together. So chapter 1 of The Power of Awareness, and I want to note the introductory sentiment from Neville in this book, and he says two sentences, in fact. This book is to reveal your infinite power, against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. It is to show you who you are, your purpose, and your destiny. Chapter 1, I am. All things, when they are admitted, are made manifest by the light, for everything that is made manifest is light. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 13. The light mentioned here is consciousness. Consciousness is one, manifesting in legions of forms or levels of consciousness. There is no one that is not all that is, for consciousness, though expressed in an infinite series of levels, is not divisional. There is no real separation or gap in consciousness. I am cannot be divided. I may conceive of myself to be a rich man, a poor man, a beggar man, or a thief, but the center of my being remains the same regardless of the concept that I hold of myself. At the center of manifestation, there is only one I am manifesting in legions of forms or concepts of itself, and I am that I am. I am is the self-definition of the absolute, the foundation on which everything rests. I am is the first cause substance. I am is the self-definition of God. I am has sent me unto you. I am that I am. Be still and know that I am God. I am is a feeling of permanent awareness. The very center of consciousness is the feeling of I am. I may forget who I am. I may forget where I am. I may forget what I am. But I cannot forget that I am. The awareness of being remains regardless of the degree of forgetfulness of who, where, and what I am. I am is that which amid unnumbered forms is ever the same. This great discovery of cause reveals that, good or bad, man is actually the arbiter of his own fate, and that it is his concept of himself that determines the world in which he lives. In other words, if you are experiencing ill health, knowing the truth about cause, you cannot attribute the illness to anything other than to the particular arrangement of the basic cause substance, an arrangement which is defined by your concept, I am unwell. This is why you are told, let the weak man say, I am strong. Joel chapter 3 and verse 10. For by his assumption, the cause substance, I am, is rearranged and must, therefore, manifest that which its rearrangement affirms. This principle governs every aspect of your life, be it social, financial, intellectual, or spiritual. I am is that reality to which whatever happens, we must turn for an explanation of the phenomena of life. It is I am's concept of itself that determines the form and scenery of its existence. Everything depends upon its attitude towards itself. That which it will not affirm as true of itself cannot awaken in its world. That is, your concept of yourself, such as I am strong, I am secure, I am loved, determines the world in which you live. In other words, when you say, I am a man, I am a father, I am an American, you are not defining different I ams. You are defining different concepts or arrangements of the one cause substance, the one I am. Even in the phenomena of nature, if the tree were articulate, it would say, I am a tree, an apple tree, a fruitful tree. When you know that consciousness is the one and only reality, conceiving itself to be something good, bad, or indifferent, and becoming that which it conceived itself to be, you are free from the tyranny of second causes. You are free from the belief that there are causes outside of your own mind that can affect your life. In the state of consciousness of the individual is found the explanation of the phenomena of life. If man's concept of himself were different, everything in his world would be different. His concept of himself being what it is, everything in his world must be as it is. Thus, it is abundantly clear that there is only one I am, and you are that I am. And while I am is infinite, you, by your concept of yourself, are displaying only a limited aspect of the infinite I am. It's a really good chapter. It kind of just, what I love about this is that it just, there's no warming up. You are just thrown into the truth of this. From the beginning of the chapter, Neville comes out and he says that everything is one. There is only one, manifest as many. Right? There's only one, manifest as many. And this, in my opinion, is super critical to understand. This is actually something that has allowed me to, the term you may use is heal myself of a lot of bipolar and PTSD and bitterness and regret. A lot of this has been eradicated by my understanding that I am not wholly Michael Gustin, right? You are not wholly John Doe, whatever your name might be. That is not who you are, right? Who you are is infinite. It is I am in its fullness, manifested or presented to this physical universe, existing inside of this physical universe as an aspect of I am, right? So what we're learning here is that the very ability to imagine, to feel, to think, the intelligence that allows us to do these things is, in fact, who we are. So you might say that you're not your body, you are the electricity or consciousness that flows through your central nervous system and everywhere else in your body, right? You are not just a human. You're not. You are something far greater. You have come from something far greater, and you are going back to something far greater when your body ceases to exist. And this has been super, super important, because the minute I understand that I am not my body, I find that everything changes, right? My potential instantly opens up into an infinite field where there are quadrillions of choices that I have the ability to make and can trust will come to fruition, right? My word does not return unto me void. We're going to talk about that a little later. But understanding who we are, identity. Who are you really? Are you just the skin color, the skin, the hair, the nails, right? Are you just the aspects of the body, of life? Or are you life itself manifest as an aspect? Are you just aspects of a body, or are you life itself manifested as an aspect of itself? This stuff is great. I love it, right? So we learn that at the center of manifestation, or as at the center of the non-physical becoming physical, there is only one I am. And this one intelligence is manifesting in literally every single form of matter we see and perceive in this physical universe. And in fact, way more because there is so much that we cannot see with our eyes. In fact, scientists have discovered that we can only see 0.00000000001% of this entire physical universe. We cannot rely simply upon evolutionally based instincts, right, that have controlled our species for years, right? And I was looking at my cats last night. My cats, we just got 2 new kitties about a month and a half ago, and they were fighting. And I asked my girlfriend, I said, is this, do you think this is aggression? And she said, well, they have to learn to fend for themselves. They have to learn to defend themselves, especially because we have 2 bigger cats that are about 15 times their size. And I said, it's interesting that this was a basic human behavior, and still is in certain parts of the world, but we've created a world where this isn't necessary anymore, right? And to me, if the need to respond to perceived danger with fear is not necessary, then it's not true. Because it can only be true if it is existent regardless of the contents of our environment, right? I only prescribe to things as true as things that I see patterns with in my life over and over and over and over again, and the reasoning behind those patterns. And that's what we're getting into here. And so I am one, right? This one consciousness, people may call it God, is that which, in the middle of a ridiculous amount of forms of matter, is the same, right? That one consciousness, despite the fact that everything is what everything is, it is all of these things. And it may be uncomfortable for some people to begin to understand this, because this implies we have full responsibility for our lives, that we cannot blame somebody or something for why we are not having desires and quenching them with solutions. We cannot blame the circumstances of our lives on anybody else but us. And it's not even about blaming. It's more about understanding, right? It's more about understanding that we create our reality by the very nature of our concept of ourself. Because our concept of ourself determines the form that is impressed upon the infinite I am that is us and in us and everything else in the world. And because like attracts like, there is absolutely nothing that is going to happen in your life that is not in alignment with your concept of yourself. I want you to consider why things are normal, right? Normal things are things that we expect to happen in our lives on a regular basis. What we call normal is what we simply expect to experience on a regular basis. You can also call this natural. But the whole thing about normal is that normal is different for everybody. Normal is different for everybody. And if normal is different for everybody, your normal can be shifted. But what determines what normal is for us? It's certainly not this exterior or outside of us cause that is controlling our lives like puppet strings, right? It's us doing it to ourselves, right? Something happens, something bad happens, we break up with somebody and we say, you know what? I just knew it was going to happen. And it always blows my mind when we say, I knew that was going to happen. And, whenever somebody tells that to me, I say, you know what? Yeah, you did. And they look at me funny because they're like, what? And I'm like, did you listen to what you just said? You knew that was going to happen. Well, of course it did. You knew it was going to happen. Your ability to know that something is true determines its ability to happen. I know. It's crazy. So this really means that whatever your normal is, in order to experience a new normal, your current normal has to shift. And this starts with you identifying what that new normal is. What is your new normal? If you don't like your job, well, what do you want your new normal to be? You want to be an entrepreneur? You want to have a better job with better pay, less hours? What about your relationship? Do you not like your relationship? Do you like your relationship, but you're having problems in your relationship? And these things are all normal? Well, they begin shifting when we begin shifting our normal. See, because what happens is there is feedback loops that are going on inside of us unconsciously. Unconsciously. I want you to think about how many times you remember your conversations with yourself. Probably once or twice a day. The truth is you're having conversations with yourself all day. And you're reacting to sensory stimuli and you're saying, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, this means this, and this means this, and this means this, and this means this. But the truth is it doesn't mean anything until you assign the meaning. But when you assign the meaning and you repetitively assign that meaning, all of a sudden you're saying, I expect that to happen. I know that's going to happen. Because it has become your truth. It's become what you know to be true, right? A couple years ago, I was completely homeless. No job. I don't even think I had my social security card. I had maybe 3 pairs of clothes on my back. I had just gone through a very long stint inside of Christianity. And if you're a Christian, that's cool. Nothing against you. But for me, it was not working out. During my stint in Christianity, which was about 5 years, I traveled the country as a youth pastor, a young adult pastor, worship team leader, all that good stuff. But the thing was, I could never accept these people's interpretations of God, or what God was, what the truth about this universe was. I couldn't, because everybody said something differently. And because of this, I very much traveled from baptism to Pentecostalism to Seventh-day Adventist to Church of Christ to Baptist, I think I said Baptist, a Reformed Baptist, you name it. I was probably a part of that denomination at some point, trying to figure out what the truth was. And I did this for about 5 years, and I saw a lot of crazy things you probably wouldn't believe. I saw limbs grow out of thin air. I saw food literally appear out of thin air. I had and saw visions of people and things happening in their lives whom I had never met. And then I would meet them and tell them what I saw, and they would start crying because it was right on point with exactly what they were dealing with. And I say all this to say the truth about, why I'm even here today sharing this with you started with this. I was desperate to understand the nature of reality, what the truth about reality really was. And that led me to this. And through my journey in Christianity, it led me to an experience that I had in 2015 that really confirmed all of those crazy experiences. And I had an experience where for less than a minute, I lost all coherence of myself, of my hair color, of my name, of the country I was from, of the state I was born in, of where I grew up, of all that stuff. I lost coherence of that and felt myself, or what we are now understanding to be I am, inside of everything. And in a single moment, my entire life was drastically shifted. From this moment, I began diving into a lot of Eastern culture, a lot of law of attraction, a lot of new thought, Hermeticism, you name it, Kabbalistic literature. I was in it, man. Esoteric stuff was my thing because I was desperate to understand this. And as I began understanding it and applying it, eventually I was no longer homeless. And eventually I was building really, really cool things. And eventually I moved into the house of my dreams, with the car of my dreams, with the girl of my dreams, with the business of my dreams, making the money of my dreams, doing the things of my dreams. And I didn't graduate college. I graduated high school with a 3.3. And so I'm not going to ascribe intelligence and hard work solely to success. I believe in passion, and I believe in doing things where you give because you want to, not because you have to. And ultimately, backtracking to the whole root of this concept here is that you are only limited, truly, you are only truly limited by the concepts of yourself that you carry. Because right now, you can choose to believe something to be true. You can choose to know that it is as true as any other truth in your life currently going on. And you can take that. And if you persist in the belief and assumption of it being true, you'll find it inevitably manifesting in your life. Over the last couple of years, I have gotten everything that I've thought about the most. I have gotten everything that I've given the most energy to. One of my favorite authors, Charles Hannell, he mentored Napoleon Hill. He said, we can only do to the extent that we can be. We can only be to the extent that we are. What we are is determined by what we think. Right? Our concept of ourselves, what we think of ourselves, what we know to be true of ourselves, determines our ability to exist as that thing, because our concept of ourselves determines the action we take. Right? The action we take in our lives is directly correlated to the ideas that we have about ourselves. That and a bit of knowledge. But for the most part, you're not going to go back to an abusive relationship when you truly know your worth. Now, the abusive relationship may serve to show you your worth, but you're not going to recycle those experiences. For a very long time, I could not hold down a relationship. I could not hold down a relationship. For one reason, I was really clingy. Why? I grew up without a father. I grew up in 15 foster homes, and I never learned how to process my emotions until I was 20, right? Lots of those. And they kept coming back. For one reason and one reason alone, was that I did not believe I could survive on the merit of my own love. And so I was constantly attracting codependent people while recycling very short-lived relationships full of just anger and fear and scaredness over and over and over again. You know, and after the experience that I had that I shared with you, I began to realize these patterns. I began to understand, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. It's the same thing in every other area of life, right? We are only going to go back to experiences that we hate because somewhere inside of ourselves, we believe we deserve them. We do. Whether we consciously want them to happen or not, deeper than our conscious ability to rationalize, we have a subconscious layering of belief that says we deserve it. And not until we begin to understand who we really are will we begin to pull away from these beliefs, because at the end of the day, that's all they are beliefs. And beliefs are things you keep on thinking over and over and over again. And so if you want to change reality for yourself, you have to go to the source of reality, which is your concept of yourself, your understanding of yourself, who you understand yourself to be. And your ability to persist in this because you are I am, because you are infinite, literally by the nature of your being. Any concept of yourself that you persist in, persist and persist and persist and persist and come to know as true with a sense of naturalness will turn into reality. It will become your environment. The world is what it is because man is what he is. But if man is to change this concept of himself, the world will also change in regard. I've seen this time and time and time and time and time again. My own life and the life of my clients and life itself. We cannot get away from the single fact, that we are creators and we are creating in every given moment. Every single moment we are creating. We are making space for reality to fill in itself. We are creating and making space by the merit of who we know ourselves to be. And you can never get away from this. You've been doing it your whole life. I've been doing it my whole life. We've all been doing this our entire lives. So I'm not necessarily telling you to do something you've never done, per se. What I am doing is challenging you to think a different way than you've previously thought, to create a beautifully detailed image and picture of yourself in the fullness of your destiny, and ascribe to the truth of that reality now. In every single moment, our future lies ahead of us on the road of a billion paths. By the merit of our choices, in action, in feeling, in concept of self, we choose one of those billion paths. And we experience the fruit of our non-physical labor. We experience the truth of our concept of self. And so my challenge for you today is to identify a new concept of yourself, to create a new image of your life, to give yourself the freedom to crucify the person you've been and resurrect the person you want to become. Because that belief is only sleeping inside of you. You just haven't awakened the knowing. And that's okay. You're here to remember who you are. You're here to remember that you are I am, that you are love itself, that you are worth itself, that you are value itself, that you are so much more than adequate. You are beauty itself. You are magnificence itself. You are health itself. You are everything you could ever want to be. This is the most important thing that you can learn. And so I appreciate you taking the time to listen with me today. I really hope that something I've said has encouraged you. Feel free to share this with your friends. If not, I'm not going to be upset. But it's been a pleasure talking with you today, and I'll see you next time.